Do you remember the last time that you got mad at something your parents said or did, and you reacted in a way that you didn't feel good about? You regretted later, maybe you yelled, or you just got angry, or you ignored them. Today we're going to talk about 5 things that you can do in the moment so that when you're frustrated with your parent in that moment, you can try these things. They'll help to calm your nervous system down and help to recenter yourself. So the idea is that if we can increase space between the trigger, something our parent said or did, and our reaction to it, then we can respond better and feel better about the whole experience. First, we'll go into 5 strategies that you can use in the moment when you're triggered, but stay tuned for the end of the video for a bonus strategy that is actually my favorite. When we're triggered, our brain, our nervous system, is going into fight or flight. A bunch of chemicals are released. So in those moments that we're triggered, those are not the times that we should actually practice any of these things until we've practiced them out of this situation. These are strategies that you're going to eventually be able to use when you're triggered, but at first you're just trying to come up with a plan that you can put together and practice beforehand so that when you're in that situation, you can kind of automatically go through these. The first strategy is to recognize the trigger. When we can make ourselves aware of the thing that our parents said or did that triggered us, that's the very first step in being able to learn how to control it. In noticing and then writing down the trigger, it allows us to get some distance from it. So instead of it being like we're in the painting, we're looking at the painting. So getting that little bit of distance allows us to see it more objectively. We're not surrounded by it, we're not in the middle of it, and we're not overwhelmed by it as much. The second thing to try is to pause and breathe. Breathing is one of those things that we just kind of take for granted because we're doing it all the time. But when we can use breathing consciously as a tool, it can really help us to calm down. They've done a lot of studies that have shown that neurologically, what specific types of breathing, especially something called diaphragmatic breathing, where you inhale, your belly goes out, you exhale, your belly goes in, actually calms our nervous system. So when we're triggered, we're often in fight or flight, and doing this type of breathing can take us out of that fight or flight. The third thing to try is to acknowledge your feelings. So when you were triggered, it brought up a feeling. See if you can name that feeling. It might be frustration, hurt, anger. Write that down in your journal or your notebook next to the trigger that you identified earlier. Identifying the feeling we're having that's associated to the trigger helps us to validate it. It also helps us to step back from it a little so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. Like we talked about earlier, instead of being in the painting, we're step back and looking at the painting. The fourth thing you can try is to use a grounding technique. So this is another one of my favorites because it's using one of your 5 senses. This is something you can touch, taste, feel, smell, hear. The idea is to keep refocusing yourself back to one of those 5 senses. So as your brain wants to keep going back to the trigger or the emotion that was a result of the trigger, you keep bringing your focus back to one of those 5 senses. I did a video on grounding. It's linked at the end of this video. The 5th strategy to try is to use compassionate detachment. That can be a hard one because the idea is to not take what our parent did or said personally. We try to not take it as a personal attack, but more like it's something they're dealing with. They must have some internal stuff that they're going through that's coming out in anger or frustration or hurt, or it could be part of the dementia. If we can see what they're doing as not a personal attack on us, then we can be more patient and we can be more compassionate. One of my favorite strategies is to use a code word or a code phrase that actually will trigger me to interrupt the pattern that I'm running of being angry or frustrated or hurt. The idea is to try to find a word or a phrase. It can be funny, it can be totally irrelevant to the situation, and actually those are better ones because humor often is a good way to interrupt the pattern that we're running. For example, my coworkers who know that I get really frustrated by anything that has to do with insurance companies or healthcare providers who aren't really providing, or just how broken the system basically is, have a code word of avocado. It has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't mean anything to me. But when they use that word, it immediately interrupts what I'm doing and I get a grin or I actually start laughing. So finding something that's ridiculous or funny can really be powerful. So just as a recap, in today's video, we talked about 6 things you can use in the moment that you're triggered. We talked about acknowledging and naming your trigger, pausing to breathe, naming the emotion you're feeling from the trigger, using a grounding technique, using compassionate detachment, and using a code word or code phrase. Those are the 6 things that I use personally and that I teach my clients. Have you ever used strategies like these before? Have you even thought about the idea that we can interrupt something we might do automatically? Have you thought about the whole idea of a trigger and what happens when we get triggered? The power that we have is in increasing that moment between the trigger and the reaction so that we can have more of a response, a conscious response that we want. Have you thought about that whole concept before? Let me know in the comments section. Thanks for watching.